What we're going to do today is we're going to work on lesson 24. This is the last new lesson of hands-on equations. Lesson 25 will be the test review, and then we're all done with hands-on equations. So what we're going to do with this one is this is example B, and this is example C, and I'm going to show you how to work these lessons. So let's go ahead and look at our notes. Again, upper right-hand corner, we're going to do name, your hour, whatever hour that is, lesson 24, 1 through 10. And again, last new lesson of hands-on equations. So let's go ahead and take a look at example B. I end up with 2 parentheses negative x plus 2x parentheses plus 4 parentheses negative x parentheses plus 2 equals x plus negative 4. So that's the problem from the app. And what we're going to do, again, we're going to cut our paper in half. Let's go ahead and let's take a look at a few things. First thing, you're going to notice I got a negative x here and I got a negative x here. We're going to put those and we're going to make those a star. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that in as a star. Oops, you know what? Take that back. I'm going to go ahead and do this in black. So I'm going to go 2 parentheses, star. You don't have to necessarily use the star, but I find it's a lot easier if you just go ahead and you sneak in those stars. Okay, so now that we did it, you're going to notice that I have the distributive property that I'm going to use. You're going to notice I have parentheses and I got a number out front. The number that's out front is positive. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use the distributive property. 2 times star is 2 star. You're going to notice the plus sign is between it. And then 2 times 2x is 4x. You can think of it as packages too if you want to, but we're not going to extend that at all. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to combine like terms. You're going to notice that I have a 2 star here and I have a 4 star here. So I'm going to bring that together. I'm going to make that 6 star. And now I think what I'm going to do is get all my numbers to one side. So again, there's multiple ways of doing this problem. This is probably the way that I want to do it. You might want to do it a little bit different, but it still works as long as they're legal moves. I get a negative 6. And then what I'm going to do is get that negative 6 by itself. So I'm going to subtract an x from either side. Six star plus 6x, or sorry, 3x equals negative 6. You'll notice that I dropped this plus sign right there. You don't need that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to explode on the left-hand side. End up with 3 star equals negative 6. I'm going to divide by 3. And I get star equals negative 2, x equals 2. Another thing that you need to do, and I don't mean to forget this, another thing that you'll want to do is you'll need to define that this is also a negative x. Don't forget to do that because that is very important when you're doing these problems, is that you include that that's a negative x along with the star. Now what we're going to do is we're going to come back to our check. We're going to write the original problem. And we're going to take out the negative x, and this is one reason why that's important to have that -2, or I'm sorry, that negative x, is so that you know what negative x is, and that is -2. Then what we're going to do is we're going to work again inside the parentheses using order of operations. So I'm going to multiply the 2 times 2, which is of course 4. And I'm going to write down all the other things around it. I'm going to go ahead and fix that. Then I'm going to still work inside the parentheses here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply. And if you want to, you can multiply both of those at the same time. Oh, I forgot to put in a negative. I'm sorry. This is a negative. That looks a little bit better. Go ahead and work this through. And I end up with a -2 equaling a -2. And that is a check. All right, so that is example B. Let's move on to example C. And I ended up with 2 parentheses -x plus, oops, sorry, that was a negative. This is right from the app. You're going to notice that we've got a couple of things going on here. First thing is you've got a -x. But the other thing that I have is I got a negative right there. And that was problem on the last lesson that we did. And so if you remember on the last lesson when we had something like that, the piece of advice that I had for you is to sneak in a 1 and then do the chop-chi. So I'm going to go ahead and take this out, and I'm going to put in a star. And then what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to write down this problem again using that new information that I have. I think it's going to be a little bit easier. Oops. I think it's going to be a little bit easier to do that. Don't do too many steps at once. Do one thing at a time. Otherwise, it gets really confusing. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that -1 and I'm going to multiply it by -3. So I end up with a 3. Sign between is a plus. And then I'm going to take that -1 and I'm going to multiply it by x. So I actually got a -x. And let's go ahead and let's write down that other stuff around it. Now you're going to notice that this -x can cause us a little bit of a problem. So I think what I'm going to do there is I'm going to make that into a star. And again, don't skip too many steps at one time. Do one thing at a time. Now you're going to notice that I got a star and I got a 2 star. So I'm going to make that into a 3-star. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take care of my numbers. So I'm going to subtract 3 from each side. And then I want to get rid of the 2x, but I can't subtract it. So I'm going to add a 2-star. I end up with 5-star equaling 2x plus 2-star plus 5. I'm going to subtract my 2x, subtract my 2-star. I end up with 5-star equaling 5. Divide by 5. End up with star equaling 1, which of course is also our negative x. Don't forget that. And then x equals negative 1. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to do my check. Again, I used the original problem. I'm going to take out that negative x and I'm going to put in a 1. Now I'm going to work inside the parentheses right here because order of operations, we always do parentheses first. So I end up with a negative 4. Okay. Now I'm going to multiply. Oops. Gives me a 2. If you want to do the chop here, that's just fine. You could do it up above too if you really want to. I'm going to go ahead and multiply on the other side. And you're going to notice that on the left side I get a 6. The right hand I get a 6. And that is a check. So that is section or lesson 24. Those are the last new problems. The next lesson would be lesson 25, and it is the test review. Let me know if you have any questions.